Yes, I will be voting. Yeah.
Voting is part of exercising our duties as Muslims, as citizens of this country.
Even if some people think that maybe it's not so important because it's already a kind of done deal, but I think it's still important to kind of show what we think of the choice in this country. I don't think we have much of a choice in the way the election system works, but yeah.
We need to vote for the people that represent us, that express our views, that can explain our rights, our views in the parliament.
What's happening in Gaza and other places in the world?
There's many things, but my main concern would be the people who are dying, innocent lives have been taken.
And I don't think Mr. Keir Starmer is doing good enough because they are opposing for the ceasefire and other issues.
And we have been kept silent, and the world are saying and selling arms and things to the wrong people.
Some of the policies are against us as a community. Unless we elect for the people who are going to create the policies that will work for us, not work against us.
If Labour Party ends up in government, will they do the job?
They'll do our job. They won't do a job that I think will be a good job, but they'll probably do a better job than the Tories, but I don't think they're going to do any kind of radical or transformative change that we need, essentially.
What I see now as an independent for Islington North constituency, I am voting for Mr. Corbyn.
Well, I've been the Member of Parliament for Islington North since 1983. 45% of our children are living in poverty. There's a 2-child cap on universal credit benefits.
I was not going to vote. I was thinking I don't know who to vote for, but then I realised my local MP, Jeremy Corbyn, will be standing independent, so I'm definitely going to vote.
He always, in his mind, in his soul, he's a vision for Muslims, feeling for Muslims, and other issues as well. So therefore, I'm voting for Mr. Corbyn.
What we need is our young people to be brought up understanding the diversity of faith. Islam, Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and understand where faith comes from and the history of it. That would start to undermine the dangerous message of the far right, which is that somehow or other Islam is a threat to their society. It's complete nonsense. The role of the mosques and Islam in our society is very beneficial. There cannot ever be a hierarchy of racism. Racism is wrong, and you defeat racism by education, by understanding, by an understanding of history, and, where necessary, by prosecution of people. A lot of women suffer the most appalling abuse, particularly Muslim women on the streets and on the buses and so on, and they often just tolerate it or accept it or just suffer in silence and don't talk about it, don't report it to the police, don't report it to anybody else. And so it just gets worse and worse. But we have to be very tough on it. And it's Muslim women that suffer the most, I think, and they need support, but they also need a proper response from the police to ensure that the perpetrators of this abuse are dealt with. There are problems of lack of funds in the school. There are problems of lack of funds in our hospital. And of course, there's the horror show of the war in Gaza. 1, poverty and homelessness, an end to rough sleeping and proper support for homeless people. 2, peace in the world by calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. 3, get to work on clean air, get to work on sustainability and environment, give hope to young people. The most important issues facing people in this community are housing and housing stress and poverty. 45% of our children are living in relative poverty. The private rented sector is completely out of control.
Yes, and our biggest campaign for the Caribbean people at the moment is fighting for reparations for slavery and also about the scandal of the Windrush scandal, as it's known. People are still not paid compensation. People are still suffering exclusion, and
And Windrush was a deliberate act of government policy to create the hostile environment. I mean, hi, how you doing?
And it's good to see that a judge has actually declared that what Suella Braverman did in terms of cancelling the office in London that was, making payments so people are at least hearing their cases was illegal.
Yeah.
And they're winding down the whole operation.
You think of all those people that came to the Caribbean in the 40s and 50s and early 60s, and built our hospitals, built our railways, built our roads, ran our education service, ran the transport system, and gave a lifetime of work, and then told by Theresa May, you don't belong here anymore.
The headlines today, which is a story on Keir Starmer saying that you had been a better PM than Boris Johnson. What would be your comment on that?
Well, at last, recognition. Thank you. I fought the 2019 election with Boris Johnson as the rival. It wasn't the date of our choosing. That was Boris Johnson's doing, and the media totally supported Boris Johnson, even when he hid in a fridge to avoid debate. And it was, some of the stuff was ludicrous. And we put forward a comprehensive, costed manifesto which would have helped to eliminate poverty in our society and become a different kind of grouping on the international stage. And I would have been proud to have led a government that would have tried to bring about those changes.
How should people be voting in the upcoming elections, and what do they need to think about?
Well, I think they need to think about their own lives, their own communities, and the situation facing the world. I find that many people are actually quite depressed. They're quite depressed because the two major parties are not offering an economic alternative. The Conservative manifesto is essentially a continuation of the growth of inequality in Britain, and for reasons that I don't fully understand, and I don't think there's any logic behind it, the Labour position is that they will maintain the tax system as it is and maintain the funding plans as they are for health and local government. That means, where's the money going to come from to refund the health service and education? And where's the money going to come from to build more housing? So I say to people, if you're thinking about how you're going to vote in the election, think about your community, think about what you need, think about your own life, and then look at all the candidates in your constituency, ask them the questions, ask yourselves the questions, and make your decision on that basis.
What would be the solution, for fair taxation system?
Very good question. Fair taxation is the key. The tax threshold of what you can earn before you pay tax is £12,000 per year. I think that should be increased to 15, maybe higher, over a period of 5 years. And that would actually put more money into the wallets of the poorest people in the country. Obviously, that would reduce income for the government. So you look at the top end, you look at a wealth tax, you look at taxation of the biggest corporations and the biggest businesses.
So Gaza seems to be a major factor in deciding who to vote for. In your opinion as a politician, why do you think that is?
We're watching a war in real time on television. At the UN, Britain disgracefully abstained when the US vetoed motions calling for a ceasefire. And those politicians that failed to vote for a ceasefire in the British Parliament last year have been surprised by the degree of anger there is amongst constituents, all constituents who just feel appalled. The least they could have done was call for a ceasefire. The day after that Gaza vote, or non-vote, I walked from the town hall, which is up a street in Islington, over to where we are now, near my office. And I've never known a time when people just stopped me. I didn't know them, to say thank you for your stance on Gaza. And they weren't people that I'd ever met before, they weren't people that had ever shown the slightest interest in international affairs before. I think there will be probably less participation in the election than previous ones because of the lack of a clear alternative between the two major parties. I expect there will be a Labour government after the election, but I also think there's going to be some interesting results around the country.
From Labour to standing against Labour, what has changed?
Well, Labour standing against me. That's the first thing I'd say. The local Labour Party was denied the right to choose a candidate. I was denied even the right to submit my name for consideration. And many people contacted me and said, Jeremy, this is appalling what's gone on here. You've been our MP for 40 years. You don't deserve to be treated like this. And I said, well, it's not about me. It's about the community. It's about democratic voices. And so I decided that I would run as an independent. 3 weeks ago, we met, rented a room in the big room in the fashion centre just down the road here, the London Fashion Centre, and appealed for volunteers, and 1,000 people volunteered straight away.